fallout from the UK's travel red list travel ban continues for South Africa. Now, while government says it's puzzled by the UK's decision, the tourism industry says losses are mounting as tourists are kept from our shores. Now, the UK government on Friday announced that 8 countries, including Bangladesh, Kenya and the Maldives, will move from the red list on September the 22nd, and the rules for international travel to England will change on October the 4th. Before the pandemic, South African tourism industry was a rare outperformer in an economy that failed to grow in that period, with 430,000 UK tourists visiting South Africa in 2019 alone. Let's talk more about this red list and the impact it's going to have on business. Deon, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Credo Wealth, joins me now to unpack this further. Deon, many thanks for your time this evening. I mean, in the kind of business that you are in constant engagement with businesses and clients alike. What concerns have been raised around the red list in your engagements?
Thank you, Rofhiwa. I think the main point is simply the one that you've mentioned already, which is that it has a very detrimental and a very material impact on the tourism industry. In our sort of business, we're in an investment business and we service clients. And we've been very lucky, thanks to technology, that for the past 18 months, we've been able to, keep on engaging with clients virtually in the same way that I'm chatting to you tonight and the viewers can see me live from my study in London. So we're not that much impacted. And a lot of other businesses, you can argue, are potentially not that much impacted in the short or medium term. But there's no substitute for bodies getting on airplanes and moving across borders when it comes to tourism and spending money elsewhere. So tourism and all the related industries, those who service the tourism industry, has already had a very, very tough time. And unfortunately, that now is going to continue for longer and for reasons which a lot of people don't really understand.
Right, Deon, would there be any material impact on supply chains, our exports going to the EU, the UK, which are one of our biggest trading partners? Are we going to or expecting to see some trade disruptions in the medium to long term should the situation continue?
When it comes to supply chains, I doubt that will be the effect. I mean, supply chains have problems of their own in the sense that we've had dislocations in international markets because factories have had bottlenecks. They haven't been able to procure raw materials, perhaps, to produce whatever their part of the supply chain is responsible for. But those are the same problems that we've been living with for at least the last 18 months, as long as we've been in this pandemic and various stages of lockdown around the world. So I don't think that as such is impacted. But as I said before, I think when it comes to tourism and all the related industries, as far as tourism is concerned, clearly that is a direct impact and a very detrimental one, and unfortunately now for longer rather than shorter.
Right, and we do have some of those businesses operating in the hospitality industry in the UK. Some of those company outlooks, Deon, I'm sure you've been having a look at those performances and really what the short to medium term outlook is for them should this red list continue.
Yeah, I think in the UK, people are brushing it off because other markets are opening up. In fact, today, as you may have heard or seen, the US has just opened up. So previously, for the last 18 months, you were not able to travel to the USA unless you had a US passport. That has opened up today. There's a relatively normal travel between the UK now and most of Europe and lots of other destinations. There's really only a handful of destinations that are really impacted, and I'm talking about the big ones. There's something like 500,000 Brits that would visit South Africa on an annual basis. My family and I certainly are a portion of that. We would have spent Christmas at home this year, and we would have gone to restaurants, and we would have, spent money at the people and hire a car, and we would have done what every tourist does, and of course that is directly impacted.
And then just a final one, just hospitality stocks, Deon, how have those been performing if you've been looking at those in terms of the news? Surely there is still some volatility because of the uncertainty.
Absolutely, and every time there's a data point, every time that the rules change, you can see an immediate and often, a relatively substantial impact on those stocks. We are, in our own funds, invested in a basket of stocks, obviously with more of a UK European focus. And we saw, for example, in November last year, feels like quite a long time ago now, but in November last year, when the first good news of vaccines came out, beginning of November, that basket of stocks, went up sort of between 20 and 30% practically overnight, simply because people were starting to discount the fact that there'd be more travel and a return to normality, which would be sooner rather than later. It's nearly a year later now, and the world is not quite as normal as we want it to be. So we've seen some weakness again in those same sectors. But every time there's an announcement in this regard, clearly it has a direct impact. People start discounting the impact overnight, and you see those stocks move accordingly.
Deon, as always, great to catch up with you. That is the Chief Investment Officer at Credo Wealth. Just paint